Hello, 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 and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Sabrina Victoria. This is her talk show. Today, we're going to be talking all about transforming your life and amplifying your abundance with intuition. I'm really excited about this topic because this is something that I've really dove into probably within the last year. If you would have talked to me a year ago, I would have been eye rolling all over the place with this topic. But really understanding it as the conversation continues to open here with Her Nation, Her Talk Show. So super excited. Get comfortable as we explore the triumphs and the challenges faced by women worldwide. We're going to be offering some insights, some inspiration to fuel your personal and your professional growth. Let's jump in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
If you're listening live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you hashtag replay wherever you're at so we can send you some love in the comments. We're here every day delving deep into the realms of health, wealth, and leadership with some of the most brilliant women globally. We've interviewed over 600 women, and today we are adding another one to the list. We have Wendy Paige Sterling. She is an intuitive leadership mentor for Visionary Disruptors, empowering female business owners to harness their intuitive I can voice. I love that. She guides clients to align business practices with personal passions, creating deeply fulfilling and successful enterprises. Wendy, a sought-after speaker and two-time international best-selling author, also hosts the Power in the Pause podcast and created the global I Can Summit movement, Amplify Your Abundance. Welcome, lady.
Hello, beautiful. How are you?
Yes, I'm doing so good. It is so awesome to see you and have you here on the podcast talking all about intuition.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And it's my favorite topic of conversation. So
I love this. So before we dive into like the nitty gritty of this, just kind of pulling ourselves up to like a 6,000 foot level, you're talking about transforming your life using intuition. How is this even a thing?
Well, first and foremost, we are all born with it. So it drives me nuts when I hear people say, oh, I'm not intuitive. And we all are. Okay. So every single one of us has been born intuitive. It is a matter of whether or not you have access to it. And to even take us to a higher level, if you don't mind, I mean, I always love to level set. What do I mean by intuition? And ultimately, what intuition means to me is it's that inner knowing. It is that quiet feeling, that inner voice within us that is guiding us through a whisper, and typically doesn't require a logical explanation that accompanies it. And I think so many of us get caught up in our heads. We get caught up in our minds. We get caught up in the, to-do lists and needing to please other people, that we really forget about what our intuition sounds like, what it feels like. And I equate it to a sensation. It's more than just a thought. It's more than a knowing. It is a connection to a sensation in your body that comes with ease and flow. And so each and every one of you guys has the ability to tap into this. It's really just a matter of you getting out of your head, tapping back into your body, and knowing the difference between what is your intuition and what is fear or your ego trying to drive the bus.
That was going to be my question. So this sensation that you're talking about, how do we know that it's not fear?
Yeah,
so use that easily as an excuse of, well, it's my intuition, when in actuality, it's just your fear getting in the way and keeping you from what you ultimately should be doing.
Yeah, great question. And I even did a podcast all about this, because people are like, what's fear? What's intuition? What's the difference? How do I know? And here's the easiest way that I can explain it to your audience today. And that is that fear typically comes with a very panicky, like just this like anxiety driven, loud, like, oh my God, be careful, right? Oh my God, like the end of the world is coming, right? So your fear is going to be sort of like the loud bullet train that's like passing through, that is like, yes, it's trying to keep each and every one of us safe. But at the end of the day, what it's actually doing is that the fear is what is keeping you stuck. It's what's keeping you on the hamster wheel. It's what's keeping you in exactly what it is that you do not want. Intuition, on the other hand, comes with calm and ease. And it's this little like, hey, what about this? It's not, oh my God, watch out. What is going to happen? Right? Like you can tell, like there's a very different vibration and the sensations in your body are very different. Now, it's not going to be the same for everybody. So many people feel fear in one place and feel intuition in another. I personally feel fear in my chest and in my throat, where it is like a burning of panic. Intuition, on the other hand, I feel actually much lower. I feel it more kind of in my stomach and like my sacral and my solar plexus area. And it just has this very calm vibration to it, this knowing of like, yes, this is exactly what you're supposed to do. And I used to be somebody who led with fear, who led with leaning into the panic and doing what the panic told me to do. And all it did was perpetuate the life I didn't want. And the second that I started tapping into my intuition, everything shifted. And it was in probably the hardest moment, one of the hardest life moments of my life. I was highly intuitive when I was a little girl. I had what my parents thought were imaginary friends. They were actually my spirit guides and my angels who were with me and were guiding me in my highest and best when I was little. But because I was growing up in an immigrant family, we needed to fit in. I was anything but someone who fit in. I was really talked out of what my intuition and my guides were sharing with me and how and who I was. And so I shut that down for many decades until the day where about 8 years ago, I discovered that the entire foundation of my life was a facade. And that was the day that I found out that my now ex-husband was having an affair. And my intuition spoke to me and it felt very different than fear. It was my intuition and then fear set in. So I was able to actually really identify the difference between the two in that moment. And while the intuition was this foreign, like, what did you just say? Like, what is going on here? And I started getting curious about my intuition in that moment. And then I remember at the same time, it was like, but then my fear was like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? He would never do this. And then I had this intuition that was like, ask some more questions. Don't you think it's odd that this woman is calling at 11:45 at night? Like, get curious about it, Wendy, versus, holy shit, your life is over. He's never going to do that. He would never do this to you. What are you thinking? Blah, blah, right? So it's like, I was sort of in this like tug of war between my intuition and my fear. And many times I feel like that's what happens in most real life situations is we kind of have this choice and we have this moment of what are we going to listen to? And I would bet that 99% of the time you give into the fear. So I would invite everybody listening today, maybe try giving into the quieter voice and see if you get a different outcome. See if you actually get the outcome you desire, because I'm going to bet that listening to your fear is not breeding the outcome that you desire.
Listening to the quieter voice.
Yes.
That's great feedback. Great feedback.
It's about learning how to tune that up and quiet the ego, right? It's like, or at least get them where they sound like their frequency is you got to shift it of what it is that you're listening to, because it's not going to be the one that's going to be screaming the loudest.
Yeah. I have a couple questions. The first one that I kind of wanted to ask is, speaking to those that are not woo, which is me. When I think of intuition, I think of woo, and I tend to be like, girl, please. And the more that I'm kind of diving into this, the more that I'm really being curious about it, as Wendy says, the more that I'm seeing that I have actually been following my intuition for probably about 5 or 6 years. But what I was kind of calling it, or the way that I kind of envisioned it, was decisiveness.
Mm.
So I get a calling, a feeling, a thought, a pull, right? All like non-woo words.
Mhm.
And I make a decision. I make decisions very quickly. And the way that I would always describe it, and this is what I even used to tell my clients when I was doing personal coaching, not business coaching, was to throw a quarter up in the air, label one side one thing, one side the other thing,
Mhm.
throw it up in the air, catch it, flip it. Don't look at what it was.
Yeah.
Think about, what side did you hope it would land on? So when you flipped it, was your thought process, I hope it's heads? You don't
It's
even
never.
need to, you don't even need to look. You knew the answer inside. And that is how I make my decisions. Is I literally envision. I've been doing this for years now. I have 2 places that I could go. I vision myself flipping a coin, flipping it, and immediately I know what way to take it. And until I started really diving into this intuition, really understanding it, really coming to realize that I have been trusting my intuition. I have just been calling it something other than that. So I guess my question is, what are some ways of which to encourage people, right? We want to be able to pat people on the back for doing a good job. So what are some other means, words, phrases, thoughts, where we can say, you know what? If you're doing this, that is part of intuition. That is part of you trusting yourself. That's really what it is we're trusting ourselves in our own thoughts versus going out to external sources and asking a bunch of questions and asking people's opinions on things. So how can we catch ourselves really trusting ourselves and trusting our intuition? What does that look like in like layman terms?
Yeah. So I also want to address the decisiveness versus intuition, because if that's okay, and then I will get into that too, because what comes up for me is that decisiveness is about taking action based on your intuition. So the intuition, it's that feeling, it's that knowing, it's the being, and the decisiveness is about the action, it's the doing. So when you are choosing to be decisive, what that tells me is that you're choosing to not stay in the loop of like I should or the what ifs. You are trusting your gut and you are taking action with clarity and confidence.
Yeah.
Right? Decisiveness is recognizing that you have power in making a choice, right? And your intuition is giving you a new choice to pick from. So when you pair decisiveness with intuition, to me, that makes you unstoppable. So if you
wait, can you say that one time? When you pair what?
When you pair decisiveness with intuition, it makes you unstoppable. I think that's what I said.
Yeah.
But it's really about like decisiveness and intuition are linked. Because your intuition is going to be that inner knowing. It's going to be, many people refer to it as a gut feeling. It's that gut feeling where you have no evidence to back up if it's right or not, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't require logical reasoning. It is something that comes from a deeper place. Versus decisiveness, that to me is your ability to follow through. It means that you trust in your intuition and you're moving forward and taking action. So intuition is really more of a guide, whereas the decisiveness is going to be like the energy that moves it forward, right? So like it's almost like you need both.
Got
So
it.
to me, the decisiveness is going to be step 2, intuition is step 1.
Got
So I
it.
would invite you, like, intuition isn't woo. Like, it's not a woo woo concept. It can be, and I know that there are a lot of people who go down that path. To me, it's really learning how to pay attention to a different guide than the one that we've been on autopilot listening to, that ultimately is making life a lot harder for
Mhm.
ourselves. I have not stopped listening to my intuition over the last 8 years. My intuition told me to leave a 16-year marriage and to be a single mom. It told me to leave my steady corporate paycheck and to become an entrepreneur. It told me how to launch a 7-figure business in under 4 years. It told me to shut down that business and start a new business. Every single time I had the fear of everything, failure, not being able to put food on the table for my children, pay for their education, extracurricular activities, lawyers, you name it. Every single moment, I could have sat there and gone, holy crap, what are you thinking? You are crazy. And yeah, my fear was raging its ugly, ugly head. But in every single moment, I had the choice to listen to the fear, which I had allowed to guide my life for 4 decades, that got me to the place that I was, or I had a choice to listen to something different and to give it a go and to see what was on the other side. And every time I leaned into that intuition, every single freaking time, it was better than I could have ever imagined. Now, the timing wasn't exactly how I wanted it to be. It did, we live in a human world, right? Like, we live on a clock, we live on, calendars and watches and, smartphones. Um, but ultimately, you have to release and surrender to the timing of things when you are tapping into and listening to your intuition. And so what I would invite people to do is to start paying attention to, like when I was saying the sensations, it's really in learning to distinguish for you what the difference is. And I would even invite you, Sabrina, to even think about, like, what happens in the moment before I am decisive. And what is that feeling? Where do I feel that in my body? Because it the intuition is what got you to that decision that you're making. I
Beautiful.
don't know if I answered your question, the first original
Yeah.
question. So
Yeah.
you
No,
didn't tell me.
absolutely. And I'm really appreciating you encouraging myself and the listeners to feel the feeling.
Mhm.
And I totally get that more now than I ever have before. And also your distinctiveness between what fear feels like and what your intuition feels like. Um, I guess I want to talk a little bit about the patience that it takes because, somebody listens to a podcast, they're like this, you're like, oh, this is interesting. This is cool. I can see that. I could feel that. But there's a learning curve with
Yeah.
this. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit maybe about yourself, your own journey, maybe some clients on the learning curve, the patience that we need to have with ourselves as far as stepping into this intuition with ourselves.
Yeah, and I think it's such a great question, and it sort of dovetails also into what I was talking about with regards to, in order for us to have patience with this process, it's also going to require every single one of us to just slow down. And this concept of time that we obsess about so many days and hours. And the patience piece comes in when you are, as a human, wanting things to happen fast, when you're trying to control the outcome. And a big part of patience and intuition is understanding that you actually have no control in the timing. And the patience piece is really important because it will happen when it is meant to happen. I think that we live in a world where instant gratification is a requirement, right? Thank you, social media. Right? I mean, I've got 2 boys where it's like, if I don't answer a text immediately, it is like, where are you? Like, phones ringing, blowing up, question marks, like, right? It's like, holy crap, guys. Like, yes, I have a phone, and like, I don't drop everything at the, the drop of a hat. Right. And so I think part of the process is leaning into, there has to be a slowdown in order for there to be an acceleration. So what that means is when you are starting to sort of, I don't want to say play with, but when you're starting to test and tap into your intuition, it's going to require you to do so using like baby steps. Right. I think that because we desire that instant gratification, we think that it has to come with these ginormous steps. But you can't go from A to Z. You got to go from A to B, then you get to go to B to C, C to D. So what is an A to B? For me, A to B is just awareness, right? So awareness of, in a moment where, let's say, you're trying to make a decision and you are, let's I'm trying to even think of a recent example where it's like, okay, so here's an example. So when I was trying to decide whether or not to shut down my business, my divorce business, or to move forward with this new business that I have that all is based upon, tapping into your intuition to create the life and business that you desire. I had a 7-figure business. I had clients. I had a successful podcast. I had speaking engagements. I was in the media. I was so well known. And I had this moment a year ago where it was, I can either listen to the fear that has been speaking to me for a year before, telling me you're crazy, you shouldn't do this. What are you thinking? You're insane. People don't do this. What are you going to do? Right? I had this moment where I could have just given in. And to be honest, I did for about a year before I made the decision, because I was so afraid of like, everyone's going to think I'm crazy. Right. But instead, what I did was I decided instead to just go, okay, hang on a second. Let's put one foot in front of the other. This isn't about burning something down and like walking away. This is really about, well, let's just maybe burn a little piece down and then kind of take those ashes and mold it into and use that as fuel to create something, just like a little something new. And so I decided to create a new podcast called The Power in the Pause. It's like, let's just see how this podcast goes. Let's just see how this new content resonates with people. And I did it on a much smaller scale before I went and I blew this up into, the podcast world. I was kind of testing some new episodes on my old podcast. And my numbers went up. People were really excited. I was getting all this feedback. So I was putting one foot in front of the other. I didn't just go boom, dynamite, explode, goodbye,
Yeah.
right? It was like, okay, let's tap into my intuition. My intuition said, like, people love to hear you talk. Let's start with a couple of podcast episodes. Let's see if this topic is resonant. And it worked. Then it was, okay, well, my private clients know the power of my intuition. I haven't really necessarily gone out and I've, spoken from the rooftops, how intuitive I am, how I hear, see, I've got every single clair when I work with clients. I'm able to tap in. I'm able to see things that they can't. I can see these blueprints and these roadmaps for people. Okay, I'm going to start talking about how clients have experienced this part of me. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit on social media. I'm going to talk about it a little bit in my emails and see, am I going to lose people? Didn't lose anybody on my email list, didn't lose people in social media. If anything, I started gaining more people who were interested. My click rates on my emails were going up. So I'm like, okay, clearly there is a need for this. And so I say that because the patience piece, I think we strive for instant gratification, but really ultimately what is the most important is understanding that you've got to plant these smaller seeds, right? You can't rush the process. You've got to plant these seeds, you nurture it, you water it, you let the sun come in, and you sort of observe, allowing its magic to really work for you. And so if you've got to learn a whole other level of patience. And as a mom, when I had kids, I learned a whole level of patience, having kids. And even with my business and tapping into my intuition, I've had to learn a whole other level of patience, because it doesn't happen. It it not only doesn't happen the way you want, it doesn't happen in the time that you want it to be, right?
Yeah.
And so if you are willing to take little small baby steps, right? No matter how tiny it is, trusting that it is in alignment with what it is that is calling you, that is that inner nudge, that inner sensation that like lights your soul on fire. Trust that it is going to leap you, it's going to have greater leaps forward than if you give into the fear that told me for a year, like, you're crazy. Like, what are you thinking? And the second I shifted, within 2 months, I hit 6 figures. It was that fast because I listened and I tried, right? Like, I still had this other business. It was there if I wanted it, but my soul just kept saying, like, you're done. The ship has sailed. Like, it's time to move on. And it was because I wasn't listening to the people who were waiting for me to step into this new phase. So imagine, the people that are waiting for you on this other side, they're waiting for you. And the abundance is so great on the other side. It's greater than where it is that you are right now. And I know that you can't see it, but trust that it will be.
It's gorgeous. I love it. I'm on your website right now, wendypagesterling.com. We have a ton of people watching live. For the individuals that are watching live that want to learn more about you, where can they find you on social media? Is there a special place that they should start?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I tend to get a lot of folks, you can follow me on social media. It's Wendy Paige Sterling on Facebook and Instagram. But honestly, start listening to my podcast. I've got some great topics for you guys to listen to. I like to try to bring new, different, bold perspectives. I do solo episodes and I also have guests on. But you guys are welcome to do that. I also, on my website, I've got a bunch of freebies. If you guys want to get on my newsletter list, by all means, please feel free to do so. I'm sending out information to my audience all the time. I've got free downloadables and, a bunch of other really great meditations and goodies that you guys can get your hands on. And typically I give those to my email list. So that's the best place that you guys will want to be to get access to all of that free content.
Beautiful. Fabulous. Obviously we're understanding, your expertise in the area of intuition. Who should be reaching out to you? Who do you specifically help?
Yeah, so I typically attract a high achieving female executive woman who is juggling all the balls in the air. And she's probably like, I can figure this out myself. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately going to really be way more efficient for you to raise your hand and say, you know what, I need somebody to please support me and to help me with this, this piece of myself. And ultimately, what I have learned about my ideal client is she is the person she's the one who's waking up at 3 a.m. or, 4 o'clock in the morning, where she knows that there is something more for her, that she is afraid that she is not going to have her ultimate dreams fulfilled. And the stress of juggling a lot of different roles is weighing heavily on her and not allowing her to see that there is an opportunity for her on the other side. And instead of giving into the fears, it's somebody who is really seeking to have that peace and to really step into a version of themselves that they are yearning for. And so if you are somebody who is, feeling that same calling, if you're somebody who feels like they're stuck in a fog, and that you really want somebody to help you to clear it and to see through what's on the other side, that happens to be my superpower. So
Fabulous. Sounds fabulous. Thank you so much. For those of you listening live, for those of you listening on the replay, if you are resonating with Wendy Paige Sterling and all of the awesomeness that she just discussed today, we would love to have you connect with her. Her website, as stated, is wendypagesterling.com. It is in a clickable link in the description below. And then her social media is connected to her website also. So that's a little bit of an easier way to do that versus searching her up. Feel free. This has been absolutely fabulous. I took a ton of notes. I'm telling you, the more that I really dive into this concept, or this way of doing life, the more that I'm really understanding it and really understanding the power behind it. So I really appreciate hearing your viewpoint on it and your journey to where you are now. And I love that you're teaching others on how to do this. Any closing thoughts as we wrap up?
I mean, I would just invite each and every person who is listening, either live or on the replay, just really get honest with yourself. How is your life feeling? How is your business feeling? Is it where you want it to be or is it not? And I would invite you today to step into what your intuition has probably been trying to share with you for quite some time, and play with it today. Like, listen to it, see what it says, and see what's on the other side of it. I will promise you that it is going to surprise you in the best way possible. So if you are open to trying that today, I would love to invite you to do that and take it a step further. If you'd love to share that with me, I would love to hear about your wins on the other side. So please don't hesitate you can email me, you can DM me on social media, whatever it is that works for you guys. But I really like, what is it costing you not listening to your intuition? Like, what's the harm? There's no harm in trying to do something differently. I always say, like, our failures are the greatest lessons. And if I didn't fail at least once a day, I didn't learn something new. So embrace what's on the other side, and just try it differently today.
Gorgeous. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. I so appreciate you being here, sharing so much amazing information, sharing your wisdom, inspiring us. This is Her Talk Show. My name is Sabrina Victoria. Again, to our dedicated listeners, those of you that stayed all the way to the end here, we appreciate you so much. Remember to follow, like, and share. And once again, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I invite you to join our amazing community, Her Nation, where we continue to have uplifting conversations just like this one to help you out every step of the way. That is also in a clickable link in the description below, wherever you are watching us at. Until next time.